Hi guys, I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to take a look at week 3 of Inktober. We've got 9 different drawings to go through today, so let's not waste any time. Let's just get started right away, shall we? So the prompt I'm following, in case you haven't seen the first 2 videos, is Ghostober, and it's by FlukeLady. So here is the full prompt list, if you are curious about it. So we're starting out here with day 15 with the prompt of Ancient Ghost. And when I was thinking about ideas for this one, I thought about the concept of like a Spartan Roman type of like soldier on a chariot. So that is the theme I went with here. I don't know that I've ever drawn a chariot before, so I had to look up a reference for that. This one was a lot of fun to draw, actually. I think I had the most fun with drawing the helmet that I put on the ghost. It was a little bit tricky to try and figure out which helmet shape I wanted to go with, because I wanted the big ghost eyes to still be visible and everything. So I ended up choosing this shape of a helmet simply because it was the one that would work best with the eyeballs on the ghost. I believe this helmet is a Spartan one? I could be wrong though, don't quote me on that. I decided to add in a spear, of course, and I made sure that the sheet part of the ghost was flowing behind the chariot as if it's riding around, although I didn't actually attach anything to the other end of the chariot. So like, nothing is even there to pull it, but it's a ghost chariot. Let's just assume that since it's a ghost chariot, it doesn't need a horse to pull it. Yeah, that's the logic I'm gonna go with anyway. It's not a convenient excuse. No, never. Psh, for me, absolutely not. Whenever I was looking at references for the chariots, some of them had all of these extravagant details on them, and I was a little bit tempted to make mine look super fancy, but I don't know that I had enough time on this day to do something like that, so I kind of had to sacrifice a bit of the detail for the sake of time. But sometimes that's just how it goes with Inktober challenges. Life gets busy, you know? And when you only have a limited time to draw in a day, sometimes you just have to make it work. As you can see, I'm using the grayscale markers once again. Oh boy, who would have guessed? But for this drawing, since there's so much metal on it, I do end up using the golden pen again. It's also convenient because it matches with the other page on the spread, so that's a happy little accident, the fact that both of the pages are using the exact same colors and the gold. It's kind of aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, that's really it for this one. I slap on some shading there to give it a bit of depth, put a drop shadow under the chariots, and voila! Here we are with day 15, Ancient Ghost. Okay, so day 16, the word was spider. I struggled with the idea for this one a little bit, because obviously I was trying to incorporate a sheet ghost, or just a ghost in general, since it is Ghostober after all. I don't really like spiders, to be honest. I have a bit of arachnophobia. It's nothing extreme, but spiders definitely make me uncomfortable. And since I tend to draw more spoopy things versus scary things, this one was a little tricky for me. So I end up drawing a little spider on top of this ghost here. It's just chillin'. The spider is being chillin' right now. It's not the most realistic thing, but that's okay. I'm fine with that, to be perfectly honest. I plan out a bit of webs just laying around the frame I created here. This drawing, out of all of them, is pretty simple, which there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like the end result was still fine. But in terms of complexity, this is definitely more on the simple side of all of the Inktober drawings I did. Also, it's kind of funny that I decided to draw out the web in pencil, because then I go in and fill in the background with this dark marker, and I could hardly even see the pencil after that, so it kind of defeated the purpose of me blocking in with the pencil. I don't remember. I think I might have been able to just barely see the pencil, but yeah, I pretty much just completely covered it. That's okay though. Thankfully, it wasn't anything complicated, so it wasn't too difficult to just go back in with a white marker and plop in those spider webs again. Whenever I was filling in this big block of color here in the background, I was a little bit scared that the marker was going to dry out on me. Thankfully, that did not happen, but that was in my mind whenever I was doing this. But yeah, I can't do spiders. I don't know what it is. They freak me out. So I had to keep things pretty simple here. I didn't want to get too detailed and put the creepy little details in the spiders. Just no thank you. No thank you. The spider webs I actually kind of liked though. I think the spider webs were my favorite part about this drawing in particular. Mostly because I tried to just put a bit of variety in how the spider webs looked versus the very stereotypical ones that I usually draw. I tried to make them drape a bit more. The one spider web on the right hand side there kind of looks like there's a few broken areas. Yeah, I actually looked up some reference for the spider webs this time, and I think it really helped a lot. So let it be known, references. References, references, references. They help a whole lot. But yeah, there's not too much to say about this one. It's pretty simple, pretty basic, but here we are. Here's the final result for Day 16, Spider. Alright, so Day 17 had the prompt of Garden. I was pretty excited to do this one. So the idea I had for this was just draw a whole lot of plants, and I also wanted to put a tiny fish pond in there, because I love gardens that have little water features to them. Here we have a sheet ghost looking down at this little fish inside a pond. I love the little moments between the ghost and the fish there. They're just looking at each other, saying, "Hey, what up, dude? How's it going?" Surrounded by all of these plants and this scenery. Oh, phone? Excuse you. And I made the moon giant in the background. I feel like it worked pretty well, though, all things considered. It's like a dream of mine to have a nice, pretty garden with a little pond or fountain in it. Something about that makes me so happy, and whenever I eventually get a backyard, I just want to go wild with decorating it and putting plants everywhere. I don't know how good my green thumb is necessarily, but I will try to do my research on the plants I install, and I'll hope for the best, I guess. Hopefully I can keep everything alive, but that's part of why this prompt was so fun for me, because I've really been enjoying plants lately, and I love a good garden. So after I outline everything with a micron pen, I just get to work filling in with all the flat colors. I struggled a little bit on this one with figuring out where to place the different shades, because there were a lot of elements in this drawing, and I was trying to make sure that things didn't blend in too much. The more you add to a drawing, the harder it is to make sure that everything pops, really. So that was a little bit of a struggle, but it was fine in the end. It also really helped the fact that I introduced some color to this. So I put some yellow for the fish and the moon. And apparently Kiki was on my lap for a good portion of this, because I'm sure, as you will see, she's popping her little head into the frame there. So that's always fun, having Kiki around so I can get some cat snuggles while drawing. It's very cozy, and it makes me so happy. The only thing that I wasn't too sure about with this drawing was the fact that the completed piece looked more like wilderness than it did a tame garden that could be in someone's yard. It looked more like the woods, I guess, than an actual purposeful planted garden. So that is one thing that I wish was slightly different about this, but overall, I was very happy with the outcome of this drawing. So here we are with the final results. Day 17, Garden. Okay, so the prompt for day 18 is the word flying. This drawing is another simple one. I pretty much just drew 3 different ghosts flying through the sky together with the moon in the background. And that's the whole premise of that one. I like to imagine looking up into the sky and just seeing the 3 little ghostly figures fly across the moon together in tandem. I added in some clouds just to give it a bit more depth, because I felt like if it was only the moon and the 3 ghosts, it would have been a little bit plain and lacking, I think. I personally really like the fact that with the square I drew, the clouds pop outside of the border there. That's one thing I like to do sometimes that has a nice effect, where you draw a border and have things overlap it. That's also something that it's a strategy people use in comic books as well, things popping out of the frame. It makes it feel more three-dimensional in a way. I'm pretty sure the marker I used for coloring in the orange of the moon, I'm pretty sure that's actually a highlighter. But hey, it was the color I wanted and it works. You can make art with whatever you want to. So if you want to use a highlighter, you use the highlighter. Like really, you can make art with whatever is at your disposal. So, okay, one thing with this drawing, you see how I'm trying to add in some shading there to the moon? I think I might have ruined one of my micron pens because it was one of the really, really thin ones, and I think I might have accidentally clogged the tip on the end with, maybe it's the highlighter that I used, because as I was doing that, it just got lighter and lighter and lighter, and I don't think it was running out of ink. I think it was more of a clogged tip situation. I'm not exactly sure what to do about that, so, my bad. Apologies, little micron pen. I did not know that that would happen. So that was kind of unfortunate. I guess that's something to keep in mind. If you're using one of the really tiny micron pens, they're probably more likely to get clogged. So just try to be wary of that whenever you're using a micron pen on top of something. But we got there eventually. I pulled out a thicker micron and was able to finish it off. No problems, just fine, thankfully. But yeah, here's the final result of day 18, flying. Okay, so for day 19, the prompt is pumpkin, and I've gotta say, this one is one of my absolute favorites for the entire month. Surprisingly, I didn't use the grayscale markers for this one. This one, I actually pulled out my water-based brush pen markers because I felt like this one would just be best with some color in it. And I am so glad I decided to do that because I feel like the final result with the colors really pop nicely. So I had to spend a bit of time in the beginning here planning out which colors I was going to use. And I actually lined this one with a Sharpie, which is good because the other marker I was going to line it with, I tested it with my water-based markers and they would have smeared that thing all over the place. So that's why I'm using a Sharpie here. I'm so glad I tested it out because trying to imagine doing all of the color and having to be careful about smearing the line art sounds like an absolute nightmare. But yeah, we have a little ghost popping out of this pumpkin here. And I love how the top of it is like a little hat on top of the ghost. And we've got a nice big pumpkin leaf in the background. So I was trying to think about how I wanted to do the shading with this one. So I started off with the pumpkin with that yellow right in the center where I wanted it to be the lightest. And then I go in with an orange. And for the darker parts, I use this, I think it's almost like a brown. It's a dirty orange color, essentially. It's basically brown. And then I go through and have to decide on all of the colors for the leaves as well. And something about the colors I chose here, I feel like the orange and the greens really popped with each other. And I got a good amount of contrast between them too, so overall I am extremely happy with this one. I had a lot of fun making it. My mom always had a vegetable garden while growing up, and she would always grow these pumpkins. So there's a bit of nostalgia with pumpkins for me because we would grow them ourselves. And then if you keep the plant nicely trimmed and make sure it's not growing a million pumpkins on it, you will get some gigantic pumpkins because all of the nutrition is going into just a few pumpkins. So we always had these massive pumpkins to carve for Halloween, and it was always so much fun. And then we would cook the pumpkin seeds as well, and they were so tasty. So I just had a lot of fun with this piece. But here you have it. Here's the final result for day 19, pumpkin. Alright, day 20. The prompt for this day was ghost visit. So this is the only time during this month of Inktober that I've actually drawn a human. Which is kind of interesting because humans are the thing I normally draw. I really like to draw characters, mostly. So it was interesting going back for the first time in over half of a month and drawing a human again. It was kind of nice, though. So the idea I had for this one was essentially just this girl looking out her window during the nighttime and seeing this little ghost friend right outside. I wanted it to have a feeling of mystery and intrigue. Like, oh, what is this? Who are you? What are you doing here? What's going on? But not in a scary sense, like oh, hello little guy. What's your name? You know? Hence the little heart coming from the ghost. I decided to make the hair nice and wavy, and I'm actually pretty satisfied with how it turned out. Sometimes hair can be a little difficult to draw, but this one turned out okay, I think. So I wanted the focus to be the middle there with the ghost. So with the coloring, I wanted to make inside the house, like the wall of the room, I wanted to make it really dark so that it's like light from the moon is shining inside the room. So I had to figure out, okay, how do I make the window look like it's nighttime but still has a bit of brightness to it? Which can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but I feel like I managed to do that pretty okay. First things first, though, I had to make sure I got all of the flats down. I tend to do the base colors and then go back in with shading. I'm not really the kind of person who completely renders one section and then moves on to the next. I've seen some hyper-realism artists who do this, and it baffles me. I don't know how they work like that. It seems to work just fine for them, but man, that is not how I process artworks. It's a little impressive to me, to be honest, whenever people can fully render out one section of a drawing and just slowly make their way down. The wavy hair was kind of fun to render, though, because there's a lot of shading that has to go into it, essentially. But part of the effect that helped with making sure the window seemed a little bit brighter was I had a bit of a gradient around the walls of the bedroom, and that I think really helped solidify that there is some light coming in from the window itself. But yeah, here's the finished drawing. This is day 20 with Ghost Visit. Alright, for day 21, the prompt was the word woods, and this one was another favorite of mine for the entirety of Inktober. Something about just the finished product of this made me happy. Here we have a little ghost leaning against this big tree here, and we have another little ghost walking toward us from behind a tree in the background. I, of course, had to add a few mushrooms in there, of course. And I essentially just put trees everywhere, plants. I wanted it to look nice and cozy forest vibes. Like a little woodland forest, essentially. I really like how this big tree turned out, the one that the ghost is leaning against. I don't know, the concept is not overly complicated, but I feel like the execution was done exactly how I wanted it to. And these days I've been a lot better about drawing more plants and nature-based things, so that's a step up for me. I'm trying to slowly but surely branch out with what I draw, so I'm not just stuck in this hole of only drawing characters and I don't know how to draw anything else. So I'm trying to branch out a bit from that, and plants and nature has been one of the things that I've most enjoyed trying to draw. We'll work our way up to buildings and maybe cars. Cars are very painful to draw, but we're starting with this. We're starting with nature. We will work our way up to that. I was a little worried when I was putting down the flats for this because there's a lot of elements in this drawing, and I was concerned that they would start blending together because of that. But thankfully, I think it turned out okay. I don't think that everything blends together too much, but at the same time, everything does match, like things don't look out of place. And actually, I think this sketchbook spread between the two drawings here, I think it's one of my favorites out of Inktober. Like, these two pages next to each other, I don't know, I really like how both of the drawings turned out. They both match each other. I just think it's a pretty nice spread for me personally. I'm normally really bad about spreads in sketchbooks. I normally don't try to correlate the two sides with each other at all. So whenever they do end up matching like this, it's always a pleasant surprise for me. But yeah, I pretty much just go through, put some shading on everything, you know, make it all look nice and completed. And then there you have it. There is the final result for day 21, Woods. Okay, day 22. The word for this one is candlelight. I'll just be honest with you, this one was like one of my least favorite drawings that I'd made for Inktober. The concept was fine. I basically just drew a few ghosts together with cupcakes and lit candles on them. But I don't know, the actual result of how this one turned out was not necessarily my favorite, and I couldn't tell you what it is exactly about the drawing that I don't much care for, but something about it, it's not my favorite, really. I almost wonder if it's the color I used for the cupcakes, but at the same time, they're cupcakes. I mean, they're usually pretty colorful. So, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but this one was kind of a miss for me personally. I wonder if I would like it better if I had used more thin lines, potentially. Maybe the lines are just too thick. I don't necessarily think it's a bad drawing per se, it's just not my favorite for this month. I feel like there's a lot of other pages I've done that just stand out a lot more than this one does for me. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say about this piece in particular, so let's just make this a fast one, and here is the final result for it. Day 22 with candlelight. Okay, final day for this video. Here is day 23, Fairy Tale Ghost. I was very excited for this one, and this is another one of my favorites from Inktober. I was super excited for this one, and this one is one of my absolute favorites from Inktober. So I was trying to think of different fairy tales that I could use for this drawing, and I had the idea of Little Red Riding Hood. So here we have a ghost just going through this forest on a little path holding a basket of goodies with the red cape, of course. Here we are drawing more trees and forest backgrounds. That's not all bad though. Helps me get some practice in. And then in the very back, in the background, I leave a couple of eyeballs in the darkness, as if the wolf is there waiting and watching. I think the idea of the little cloak on this ghost is just super cute. and I had a great time making this drawing. The process I really enjoyed. One thing I do like about this drawing is the fact that on the pathway, instead of just making it a straight line, I kind of make it look like the path is slightly overgrown a bit and there's grass along the edges. It's not like an actual paved road, right? So it would be pretty normal for grass to be growing around the edges like that. So that's one thing that I appreciate about this piece, at least. It's a tiny detail that I've really only thought about recently, actually. But I feel like it does make an effect on how the overall path looks. I was a little nervous about making the bushes in the very front black like that, but it's almost a way of framing the picture to bring the focus more on the Little Red Riding Hood ghost. And I feel like it just helps draw your eyes in the right direction. And of course, I had to put a pop of color in this one because I had to make the cloak red, of course. I mean, you can't draw a Little Red Riding Hood picture without putting the red on her cloak. So that extra pop of color also helps with drawing your eyes to the center of the drawing. That red really brings your eyes in. And then to make the eyes in the background stand out just a little bit more, I color them orange so that they pop forward a bit out of the darkness. Because otherwise, you may not see them, but the orange brings that reflective eyeball to the drawing. Like when you're seeing an animal off in the distance, you can't really see much of it, but you can see the shine in their eyes, and it's a little bit terrifying. So yeah, that's what I was going for with this one. And here we are, the final result for Day 23, Fairy Tale Ghost. Alright, and that is all of the drawings from week 3. Which drawing was your favorite? Please feel free to let me know. I have kind of a hard time picking a favorite out of this week because there were so many that I enjoyed. It's kind of a tie between the woods, the Little Red Riding Hood, and the pumpkin drawing. Which I know, that's between like 3 different drawings out of 9, but I just really liked a lot of the drawings in this batch specifically. But yeah, thanks so much for watching this video. I appreciate you. We have one more video to go, and then we will be done with Inktober for this year. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye-bye!